show the way. For this life with plenty junction, divine true direction. One voice rise for the nation, calling for right transformation. You're welcome to For Prince of Wale Olaiton. Today is Tuesday, 21st April 2026. You're welcome to this edition of the program. I would like to begin by sincerely thanking everyone in this community, the Footprints community, for your best wishes and prayers on my dear mama's 80th birthday yesterday. Thank you very much. Words alone cannot, convey the depth of my gratitude. And I've conveyed your messages and best wishes to my dear mama. Thank you very much. So if you're just joining me on this edition of the program, this is a segment of the program where I pick a major story from The Guardian, and I also pick a major story from the Punch newspaper, the online edition. And today I want to go straight to a major story as reported in The Guardian under the headline, Federal Government slams 13-count treason charges on suspected coup plotters. You remember last year when the news broke about a coup against President Tinubu. So it's a major story as reported in The Guardian. Federal government slams 13-count treason charges on suspected coup plotters. I quickly go to the body of that story as reported in The Guardian online edition. The federal government has filed a 13-count charge before the Federal High Court in Abuja against 6 individuals accused of plotting to overthrow President Bola Tinubu. The defendants include a retired Major General, a retired naval captain, a serving police inspector, and 3 other civilians. According to court filings, they are accused of waging war against Nigeria and engaging in acts bordering on treason and terrorism. The charges mark a significant development in an investigation that has unfolded over several months, involving both military and civilian suspects. Concerns about a possible coup attempt first surfaced in October 2025, following the federal government's abrupt cancellation of a planned parade to mark Nigeria's 65th independence anniversary on October 1st. Speculation quickly linked the decision to security threats, including a potential coup plot. However, the Defense Headquarters, DHQ, dismissed such claims at the time, maintaining that the cancellation was unrelated to any attempt to unseat the government. Later that month, reports indicated that at least 16 military officers had been arrested in connection with the alleged plot, while 2 others were at large in January 2026. The DHQ formally confirmed the existence of a conspiracy to overthrow the government. So that's just breaking news. As reported in The Guardian, I'm sure we have more to talk about that story in the coming days. Federal government slams 13-count treason charges on suspected coup plotters. When I have other updates, I'll bring that story. It's a major story. So I'll move on to another important story. Before I move on to another important story, I've just read the important story as reported in The Guardian. Let's enjoy this, my new song, composed and for me, as I've said many times in recent weeks now, that Footprint is now like a community where people just try everything to support me. So a member of this community, my good brother, friend, K. Adedeji, composed this special song for me. So let's enjoy the Gbedu a little bit before I go to the next story. Foundation, from the street to the institution. Now real talk, no corruption. Community now, foundation. We dey build with dedication. Who go speak when others swear? Who go stand make the road clear? Footprints we dey follow. Step by step, we know the road. Okay, let's move on to the next item here. A story as reported in a Punch newspaper. I did my best as President. Jonathan counters Atiku. That's a major story. Since he left office, President Jonathan, he rarely grants interview. He's just doing his own thing. I'm not exactly sure what Atiku intend to achieve by mentioning his name in a recent interview he granted. So former President Jonathan has responded. I did my best as president. Jonathan counters Atiku. I quickly go to that story as reported in the Punch newspaper. Let me just bring it down, easier to read from the screen. Okay, let me go through that story. Former President Dr. Goodluck Jonathan has defended his administration, adding that he did his best while in office. His reply followed the criticism of his administration by former Vice President Atiku Abubakar during an interview on Primetime on Arise TV. Atiku, a presidential aspirant on the platform of the African Democratic Congress, had during the interview described Jonathan as inexperienced, stating that he made mistakes while he had sway. Atiku is contesting the presidential ticket with the presidential candidates of the Labour Party in the 2023 election, Peter Obi, former Minister of Transport Rotimi Amechi, and former Governor of Kano State Rabiu Kwankwaso. Reading further, in the interview, Atiku played down the prominence of Kwankwaso and Tambua in the north, limited to be support base to the south, to the southeast, and Amechi's strength to the south-south. He also expressed disappointment in President Bola Tinubu's administration and labeled as President Jonathan as inexperienced. I know Goodluck Jonathan very well. He's a decent young man, but also inexperienced. And I believe that contributed to his inability to manage the affairs of the country, particularly when he was faced with challenges, he said. Speaking at the 2025 Association of Retired Career Ambassadors of Nigeria award ceremony in Abuja on Monday, Jonathan said nobody who becomes a governor or president will say he did not make mistakes. So not too long ago, a very senior politician said, oh, Jonathan was too young and probably that's why he made mistakes. If I made mistakes, Yes, nobody who becomes a governor or a president will say you did not make mistakes. Even when you promote yourself to the level of God, you become a deity. All human beings must make mistakes. I became president in 2010 at the age of 53. I left in 2015 at the age of 58. And they say I was too young. Must it have been 100 years before I ran the affairs of the states? The former president defended his decisions in office, saying that while mistakes are inevitable, he did his best. The former president highlighted Nigeria's diplomatic achievements during his tenure, particularly his election to the United Nations Security Council. I'm talking to diplomats, so I can say that during my period, I knew what I did for us to appear in the UN Security Council 2 times. If I were so naive, I don't think I would have been able to navigate through that process, he said. Speaking on the state of the West African countries, Jonathan stressed that political stability remains a critical foundation for economic development, warning that unstable governance systems will continue to hinder progress across West Africa. He noted that while the founding fathers of ECOWAS had a strong vision, the bloc continued to face instability due to political challenges in member states. He observed that particularly in enforcing democratic norms among member states, ECOWAS has suffered setbacks, and in adding that although the bloc was initially focused on economic cooperation, the region cannot make tangible progress if its societies remain politically unstable. Yeah, I will stop there. I think the major thing from that story under the airline, I did my best as President Jonathan counter Atiku. So President Jonathan just politely responded to Atiku Abubakar, I would describe him as inexperienced. He was 53 when he became the president. He said, um, in 2010, and at the time he left office 5 years later, he was 58. I don't know what Atiku was talking about. I don't know exactly what Atiku was talking about, to be honest. And to even for Atiku of all people to have the effrontery to say that someone made mistakes in office. He was vice president to Obasanjo for 8 years. We're still talking about the $16 million that they wasted on the power sector, and we are still where we are. Sometimes people to just learn to just not to talk, especially when someone, like in this case, I don't know why he dragged Jonathan into this. Even if they asked him any question about Jonathan, he should have been more civil, I think, and he should have just left Jonathan out of this and concentrate on his own election. You describe this someone as inexperienced. The position you're trying to attain today in 2026, since you left office as the vice president in 1999 to 2007. Since that 2007, you've been trying everything possible to become the president. Yeah, 19 years later, going to 20 years, you've not been able to do it, and you're picking on someone, even though a younger man that already achieved that. What Atiku has been trying to do for almost 40 years, I think, is that this ambition of becoming the president of Nigeria, way before the return to democratic rule. He has not been able to achieve it. We are not God. If it is in God's plan for him to become a president one day, who knows? I don't know why he mentioned Jonathan of all people. Jonathan, as far as I can see him, since he left office, is just minding his own business. And I think other politicians should just learn to, to just mind their own business and leave him alone. I'll stop here on this edition of Footprints. We have just brought you two major stories, one from The Guardian around a government, charging 6 people in relation to the failed coup last year, and also another story in a Punch that I just read where former President Goodluck Jonathan politely responded to Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, who would describe him as inexperienced. I'll stop here on this edition of the program. Have a great week.